Thanksgiving chef falls in love with their boss's brother. Eddie, you outdid yourself again, one voice chimed. Eddie, the best chef in the world strikes again, another added. I smiled faintly, used to these comments. Compliments were nice, sure, but after 2 decades in the culinary world, they'd lost their edge. When I first started, a simple "this is amazing" would have me left teary-eyed and brimming with pride. Now, they felt like obligatory pats on the back. Well-meaning, but hollow. Don't get me wrong, I'm a humble guy. It's just that compliments without specifics feel like someone saying, "I like you," without explaining why. One evening, as I cleaned down the station, I heard something different. Do I taste a hint of rosemary and coriander in the potatoes? I froze. My heart did a little flip. Someone noticed. My gaze darted towards the source of the voice, a sharp-dressed man in his mid-30s, with a polished confidence that made him stand out in the restaurant. That was Andrew, a real estate mogul, known for his lucrative deals and the air of arrogance he carried. He became more than just a dinner that night. He became my future employer. When Andrew approached me with the offer to be his personal chef, I hesitated. I didn't trust him, not fully. There was something cold about him, a transactional nature in how he treated people. But he admired my cooking and was willing to pay handsomely for it. I thought, why not? I'd soon learn that the man behind the praise was difficult. Andrew was a perfectionist in the worst way. Demanding, self-absorbed, and completely void of empathy. The real downside wasn't the job. It was how my life outside the kitchen had evaporated. Long hours and endless demands meant my social life was non-existent. Dating? Forget it. I couldn't even remember the last time I had been out on a date with a man. And Andrew, he wasn't exactly the kind of guy I could share personal details with. There were moments when his off-handed comments made it clear he was no ally to someone like me, whether he was a full-on homophobe or just obviously cruel. I didn't care to find out. I carried the tray of desserts to the table, catching snippets of Andrew's conversation with his friends as I approached. I think taxes should be doubled for people in richer areas. I mean, they paid for the fancy house, didn't they? One of Andrew's friends quipped, his tone laced with entitlement. I rolled my eyes internally, though my face remained perfectly neutral. Cocky as ever, I thought, placing plates of my signature apple pie in front of them. Andrew forked a bit of pie into his mouth, chewing slowly before pausing to comment. No Indonesian seasoning this time? I kept my tone polite. Apologies, sir. The market only had Chinese kind available today. He nodded absently. I see. Well, thank you anyway. You may go. I retreated to the kitchen, longing for a break from the constant demands. A holiday would be nice, I thought wistfully. Thanksgiving, maybe. I could visit the farm where I grew up and play with my young cousins and bake them something special. Just a simple day surrounded by family and warmth. My daydream was cut short when Andrew's booming voice echoed through the kitchen. "Hey, Eddie, my boy," he called out, chuckling as he approached. Does he think we're buddies? I straightened my posture, bracing myself for whatever favor he was about to ask. I have a huge favor to ask you, he began, leaning casually against the counter. You know you're famous for buffets. My family's flying from overseas, and I'd like you to be the main chef for Thanksgiving dinner. It's a big deal. I opened my mouth to decline, already picturing my missed opportunity to see my own family. Andrew interrupted, his voice smooth and persuasive. I'll pay you triple the usual rate for one night. That gave me pause. Triple? That would cover a lot of bills and leave some extra. I sighed, the corners on my mouth twitching into a weak smile. I have an idea of what I could make that night, I said, resigned. Andrew grinned, clapping me on the back like we're old friends. Fantastic! You can even use the spare bedroom in the villa if you need some extra inspiration. He whistled as he walked off, leaving me standing there, the weight of another holiday stolen by work settling into my chest. Great, I muttered under my breath. Another holiday, another work day for me. I slumped into a chair, pulling a notepad from the counter. If I was going to spend Thanksgiving in Andrew's world instead of mine, I'd make the food unforgettable. A few days later, Thanksgiving Day arrived, and Andrew had assured me it would be a small gathering of 10 people. Yet, in just the first half hour, 10 guests had already arrived, and more were pouring in. The spacious kitchen became a stage as I moved with practiced ease. To greet the guests, I plated a selection of finger foods with a side of gravy for dipping. These welcome to the home bites disappeared almost as quickly as I set them down. The villa buzzed with elegance as the guests mingled, their slick ponytails, tailored suits, and velour trousers, matching the lavish decor. After serving them refreshing cocktails, I slipped onto the balcony for a quick smoke, taking a moment to admire the meticulous fall-theme decorations Andrew's maids had arranged. "Excuse me, do you have a lighter?" A voice startled me. Turning, I saw a blond man in a light blue suit that perfectly matched his piercing eyes. "Yes, sure," I said, handing him the lighter, watching as he lit his cigarette with an effortless grace. "So," he exhaled a plume of smoke, "you must be Andrew's favorite chef." "How do you know?" I asked, blowing out a puff myself. He chuckled. "I think the apron gives it away." "Oh, yeah," I laughed sheepishly. "Yes, I'm the chef." "What's your name, chef?" he asked, his graze lingering. "Eddie," I said, stretching out my hand. "Adam," he replied, gripping it firmly. "I'm glad to finally meet you, Eddie. Your charm is as almost renowned as your cooking, according to Andrew." I nearly choked on my cigarette. Andrew bragged about me, and someone from this polished upper-class crowd wanted to know more about me? I wasn't used to this. Being acknowledged beyond my dishes, it felt nice, like I belonged here, even if it was for just a moment. I enjoyed our little chat. "Keep your lighter handy for the next time we meet," Adam said, tucking his cigarette box back into his pocket before disappearing inside. The chill of the autumn breeze wrapped around me, but somehow I felt warm. A few minutes later, back in the kitchen, I counted 18 guests, far more than Andrew's promised 10. Thankfully, I had prepared extra starters. The maids began neatly arranging the dishes on the freshly decorated dining table. The Thanksgiving starters reflected the festive spirit. Roasted pumpkin soup, garnished with a swirl of sage cream. Miniature sweet potato tartlets, topped with pecan crumble and endive leaves, filled with a mixture of goat cheese, walnuts, and a drizzle of cranberry. The chatter in the dining room grew lively as the guests enjoyed the offerings. I turned to focus on the next course, carefully preparing the final touches for the meal. Half an hour later, just as I was planting the mains, a familiar voice broke through the clatter of pans. "Need any help?" Adam strolled into the kitchen, an unlit cigarette between his fingers. I laughed, amused at the thought. "Help me? You should be enjoying yourself with the other guests." But he surprised me, stepping closer with a smirk. "Try me." I decided to test him, fully expecting him to back out. "Well, these tomatoes and onions need cutting for the salad." Without hesitation or a sarcastic comment, Adam picked up the knife. To my astonishment, he began slicing with precision, as though he'd done this 1,000 times before. The rhythm of his blade against the cutting board was almost hypnotic. I stood speechless, watching a man I thought was a pampered socialite handling vegetables with more finesse than some of the sous chefs I'd trained. "Impressed?" he teased, his eyes flickering up briefly as I continued cutting. "Didn't expect that," I admitted, genuinely surprised. "When we finish this," Adam said casually, "how about we grab a smoke?" I wanted to, desperately, but I also knew how antsy guests could get when their food was late, and I wasn't going to risk Andrew's reputation or mine. "Maybe after dinner?" I asked, hoping I didn't sound too reluctant. "Of course," Adam grinned. "I'll finish my meal first." The main dish was, of course, a beautiful roasted stuffed turkey, paired with my signature cranberry orange glaze that complemented the juicy meat perfectly. Alongside, I served a fresh harvest salad, buttery mashed potatoes, and golden roasted vegetables. For dessert, I prepared a classic pumpkin pie with a ginger snap crust, drizzled with maple glaze. A while later, I waited patiently for Adam to reappear. True to his word, he came just as he'd promised. We slipped onto the balcony. The chill of the night air was sharp, contrast to the warmth from the kitchen. This time I lit his cigarette. The small flame briefly illuminated his striking features. "Why do you choose to hang out with me instead of your family?" I asked, breaking the silence. He chuckled. "I only see my family at these fancy gatherings, where the conversation is mostly about who has the better table setting, or whose glassware is more exclusive. I don't share much common ground with them." He exhaled slowly, watching the smoke curl into the cold air. "Honestly, I was more interested in meeting you." He was bold, I had to admit that. "Why little old me?" I asked. Adam sniffed, puffing his cigarette before answering. I had to understand my brother's fascination with his chef. He's usually so reserved, but when it comes to you, his words are almost effusive. I shook my head slightly. Adam was Andrew's brother, but his demeanor was solar opposite of Andrew's. "And what do you do, Mr. Adam?" I teased. Emphasis on the title. He turned to face me fully, with his smile widening. "Please, just Adam to you. I own my own country club, tend to my horses, a passion of mine. And generally, I am an animal lover." "I also love animals," I said with a smile. We talked for a while, our conversation easy and flowing. I gestured to the maids to keep the guests' glasses full while I fetched a bottle of wine. Pouring us each a glass, we smoked one cigarette after another. His story about horses and adventures captivated me. Adam was just curious about life, and I found myself opening up more than I usually did. Suddenly, the balcony doors burst open with a loud crash. "Little bro!" Andrew's voice slurred as he stumbled towards us, clearly drunk. "I've been looking for you." "And who do we have here?" Before I could respond, Andrew threw his arms around both of us, his embrace pulling Adam and me awkwardly close. "I'm so glad you two met," he said, his voice warm but wobbly. Adam laughed, gently steering Andrew back towards the door. "Okay, let's get you sorted out," he said. Then turning back to me, he added with a wink, "Eddie, I'll be around for a while. Have some businesses to attend to in town. I'm sure we'll see more of each other." Again, I thought, my heart skipping a beat. The next morning, Thanksgiving dinner had gone off without a hitch. But the next morning, as I helped a hungover Andrew nurse his headache, I seized my moment. "Mr. Andrew," I began carefully, "since your brother is staying here for a while, perhaps this would be a good time to consider me working full-time for you. I could oversee everything, ensuring their comfort." He groaned but nodded. Yeah, sure, Eddie. Whatever makes life easier." Perfect. It wasn't about the job anymore. It was about getting closer to Adam. Later that morning, I was preparing a bowl of healthy Fruit Loops when Adam passed by, waving a box of cigarettes in the air, gesturing me for him to join outside for a short break. "Need a break, Eddie?" he asked, lighting his cigarette with a relaxed smile. I followed him outside, taking a deep breath of fresh air as the smoke swirled between us. He casually asked, "So, do you have anyone special in your life?" Direct as always, I thought, trying to suppress a chuckle. "No, I didn't really have the time for that," I replied, shrugging. He raised an eyebrow. "Does my brother not give you any time for yourself?" I shook my head, pushing the thought away. "It's not that. I'm just tired. Life as a chef isn't an easy job, but a few more years, then I'll open my own restaurant, get things going." I quickly changed the subject, wanting to avoid indulging too much into myself. "What about you, Mr. I mean Adam? Got anyone?" He let out a small laugh. Pampered men with an obnoxious family aren't exactly top of anyone's list when it comes to partners. He paused, and then his tone shifted. I'm ready to settle down more in a relaxed atmosphere. I couldn't help but smile. I bet you'll find someone really soon. You're an easy guy to talk to. He returned with a smile, his gaze lingering on me. You too, Eddie. And well, your looks are a big plus. He winked before flicking his cigarette and heading back inside. Is Adam flirting with me? I wasn't sure. It felt different from the usual small talk. But then again, men from his class always seem to seek out those from the same materialistic background. Still, there was something about him. Maybe he was flirting with me after all. A few days later, in the following days, I grew closer to Adam. His presence seemed to light up the room, making my usual hectic days in the kitchen far more interesting. We spent hours staying up late, talking about recipes, sharing bottles of wine, and laughing about almost anything. One evening, our conversation turned to pizza recipes. Pineapple can be a good add-on to pizza, I said, trying to make a point. Adam raised an eyebrow. Yes, if you want to be a menace to society, he replied with a grin. We both laughed, toasting our playful debate with a bottle of wine. I like how you make me smile, Adam said softly, his tone suddenly warmer as he positioned himself a little closer to me. I smirked. I'm glad I made your Royal Highness laugh. Oh, you're asking for trouble with comments like that, Adam chuckled playfully, pushing me with his soft hands. In the moment of laughter, our eyes met, and something shifted. He was unbelievably good-looking, kind, funny, and always able to make me feel at ease. A warmth spread through me, and I could imagine being with someone like him. I wanted to say something to him, something more honest, something that was lingering in my chest. Listen, Adam. I started, my voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Eddie? Adam mirrored my tone, and instinctively, we moved closer to each other. The tension between us grew, the air heavy with unspoken words. Just as our lips were about to meet, a loud crashing sound startled both of us. We jumped apart. My apologies, gentlemen, said Andrew, standing at the doorway holding a piece of broken glass in his hand. I wanted to make myself useful, but fate had other plans for me. Adam and I both rushed to help him, our faces flushed with embarrassment at the sudden interruption. Andrew, sir, in the future, let me or the maids handle the dishes, I directed, my tone sharp. He merely nodded, a flicker of something. Was it understanding? Or something darker in his eyes? As he retreated without a word, did he see what I was about to do with his brother? A shiver ran down my spine. Retreating to my room, I yearned for the icy embrace of a shower to cool my heated blood. But before I could even reach the bathroom, a gentle knock interrupted me. A tall, imposing figure filled the doorway, his eyes burning with a primal desire that mirrored my own. I wanted to finish what we started, his voice like a low rumble. His hand touched my face. A spark ignited between us, but this time it felt like a wildfire. With a swift movement, I pulled him closer, our lips colliding in a passionate kiss. His hands roamed my body, tracing every curve, every inch. He swept me off my feet, our bodies intertwined. As he tossed me onto the bed, his weight pinning me down, I felt a surge of excitement. You're mine, he growled, his breath hot against my skin. I arched into him, my fingers tangled in his hair. The room spun as we surrendered into our instincts. Our bodies moved in perfect harmony, but then a sudden chill ran through me. I pulled away, my gaze locked with his. Adam's expression softened. Thank you, he murmured, his voice low. Good night. He had just gone from acquaintances to something more in a matter of days. My head spun with questions, unsure of what Adam truly wanted from me, or if he even knew himself. The next morning, I woke up grumpy, desperately needing a strong coffee to shake the restlessness thoughts from my head. Eddie, my boy, Andrew's voice rang out the second I stepped into the kitchen. "How are you doing this morning?" I barely opened my mouth before he continued, practically buzzing with excitement. "We need another one of your legendary buffets. We've got a special guest arriving tonight." "Got it, sir," I replied, keeping it short. His energy was too much for me at that moment. I slipped out onto the balcony for a quick smoke before starting my work. The morning air worked like a balm to my nerves, until I felt a pair of warm hands lightly brushing my back. "Hello," came a familiar voice, soft and gentle. "How are you this morning?" The same question, but delivered worlds apart. Andrew had asked it as a formality, a task to check off. Adam, on the other hand, said it like he actually wanted to know. "I'm fine," I replied, offering him a cigarette from my packet. He accepted, lighting it with a practiced motion. He leaned against the balcony railing. "Some new guests are coming tonight," Adam said, exhaling a puff of smoke. "My brother's being cryptic about it." "Who are they, though?" "Whoever they are, I'm sure they'll be delightful," I joked, though my eyes caught a flicker of tension in his face. Adam hesitated for a moment, then turned to me, his tone serious. "Listen, Eddie, I told Andrew I liked you." The words hit like a lightning bolt. "You what?" "I'm a direct guy. I thought you should know," he said, almost too casually. He wasn't exactly thrilled about it. Stunned wasn't the word. I was speechless. A mixture of anger and embarrassment bubbled inside me. "You should have asked me first," I snapped. "You know I work for him, right? Did you even consider what type of position that would put me in?" "So what? If he's not okay with it, you could just move in with me. Work for me instead." He said it like it wasn't a big deal. That did it. I turned on him, glaring. "It doesn't work that way, Adam. I'm not some piece of property you can toss around. And I'm certainly not your lover boy to parade around just because you think it's convenient." I stormed down to the balcony, my chest tight with anger. "Wait, Eddie! That's not what I meant." Adam reached for my arm, but I yanked it away before he could grab hold, my hands working furiously to channel my emotions into the dishes. Spicy and sour dominated the courses that followed, a bold statement that mirrored my turbulent mood. Later that evening, when I only heard 3 voices filtering into the dining room, I let out a small sigh of relief. An easy night, I thought. Then I heard Adam's startled voice. "Becca?" Curiosity tugged at me. I peeked through the kitchen door to see a woman hugging both Adam and Andrew, her presence lighting up the room. "I'm so glad you and your family could make it," Andrew said, his tone warm and welcoming. "My favorite brothers reunited," Becca exclaimed, her melodic voice carrying through the space. "What a lovely sight. My apologies for missing Thanksgiving." The air shifted, and so did my mood. I quickly ducked behind into the kitchen, my chest tightening with unease. Was I overthinking things? Or was there more to this Becca than a family reunion? I focused on the food, determined to stay professional. A few minutes later, the courses were served flawlessly. I glanced into the dining room. I took in the scene. 2 older guests, like Becca's parents, sat at the head of the table beside them. Becca, she was stunning. Glowing black hair that cascaded straight down her back, expressive brown eyes, and an air of effortless elegance. Her movements were graceful, her voice charming. She was the kind of woman people gravitated towards. She seated herself next to Adam, and the two of them fell easily into conversation. Their laughter, soft and genuine. I keep glancing their way, hoping Adam might excuse himself for one of our usual smoke breaks. But the evening passed, and my cigarette was the only one lit on the balcony. Disappointment flickered in me, but I shoved it down. Feelings didn't belong in my work. I avoided Adam for the rest of the night, burying myself in cleaning up the aftermath of dinner. When Adam offered to drive Becca and her parents home, her father having found the good stash of wine, I stayed behind, scrubbing dishes. The kitchen was quiet when Andrew walked in. He settled onto a chair across from me. After a moment, he broke the silence. "The guests were fine today, weren't they?" Yes, they were, I replied, not even glancing his way. I hope my tone made it clear I wasn't in the mood for small talk. Andrew trailed his fingers along the edge of the table, a hint of tension in his movement. You know, Becca was Adam's first love. Even if they ended things, their love hadn't entirely faded. I thought you should know that. The sponge slipped from my hand, landing on the soapy sink with a splash. I turned to him, my voice sharp. And what does that have to do with me? Andrew leaned back. Well, I wanted to wait, but Adam rushed things. I like you, Eddie. I always have. Your humility, your way with words, your meticulous cooking. You're everything I'm not. I froze, the weight of his confession bearing down on me. Sir, I snapped. I thought you were a homophobe. He reached down for the nearest wine bottle, pouring himself a generous glass. Ha! No. Pretending to be someone I'm not is just something I've mastered over the years. I've always liked men. Eddie. Adam, though, he pretended to like them. He picks someone and tries to make them fall in love with him. It's a sick game he plays. I stared at him, his words swirling in my head, like a bad plot twist in a cheap drama novel. Andrew had a crush on me. Adam was playing at liking men. This is ridiculous, I muttered. Excuse me, sir. I need some air. Andrew waved a dismissive hand as he sipped his wine. Take all the time you need. The more you think of it, the more it will make sense. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face as I tried to process everything. My thoughts raced. Adam confessed to Andrew that he liked me. In response, Andrew invited Becca, Adam's ex, to prove to me that I meant nothing to Adam? And now Andrew's telling me he had a crush on me. I hated these stupid rich people games. They treated emotions like pawns on a chessboard. Always playing for control. Adam wasn't any better than Andrew. As I strolled down the street, the wind scattered leaves in a chaotic dance of orange and gold, their colors bending and twirling in the dim light. Maybe heading towards a bar would help me clear my head. A cheap beer to drown my sorrows sounded appealing. But just as I was debating whether to go, I saw Adam and Becca. They walked side by side, their laughter carrying softly on the breeze. They looked happy. Who was I to judge? One passionate moment didn't ease the love they clearly shared. With a bitter smile, I turned towards the nearest bar. To hell with it, I muttered, shoving my hands into my pocket. Tonight, I'd let cheap beer be my solace. The next morning, I woke up with a nasty headache. Alcohol truly was both a curse and a blessing. Groaning, I slipped on my apron and started preparing gluten-free pancakes with a touch of cocoa for breakfast. Good morning, sleepyhead. Andrew's voice rang out as he entered the kitchen, his tone unusually cheerful. Did you sleep well? Yes, sir, I muttered, rubbing my temples in an attempt to soothe the dizziness. Just making breakfast. Great! Let me know if you need anything, he said with a grin, his mood oddly good. Why was Andrew being so attentive all of a sudden? He was never like this. A part of me started to appreciate the attention, wondering if my growing disappointment with Adam had softened me towards his brother. Just as the thought of Adam crossed my mind, he appeared behind me, the familiar sound of a cigarette packet being waved in the air. Smoke break, he asked casually. No, thank you, I replied, not even turning around. What's your problem, Eddie? He asked, sounding genuinely confused. I whipped around to face him, my anger boiling over. What's my problem? Like you don't know. You've been playing me like a toy, while your feelings are clearly for Becca. Adam bursted into laughter so loud it startled the birds perched on the window. Becca? Are you serious? His amusement only fueled my frustration. I don't see what's so funny, I snapped, my arms crossed. Realizing I wasn't in on the joke, Adam's laughter faded, and his expression grew serious. Eddie, Becca is nothing more than a gold digger. Sure, we had a brief thing in the past, but that was ages ago. I told her yesterday, explicitly, that my interests do not lie with women. I froze, taken back. She was pestering me all day, he continued. She insisted on the walk before I drove her home, and for the record, I had a massive fight with Andrew about her even being here. He loves these sick games. The spoon I'd been using clattered to the ground. I've had it with all of this, I yelled, my voice trembling with frustration. I don't believe you or Andrew or anyone in this house. You all think you can just toy with me? I'm not some pawn in your twisted rich people games. I have feelings, Adam. Real feelings. And you're stomping all over them. Adam stepped forward, his face etched with determination. Eddie, stop, he said, his voice soft but firm. I'm not playing games with you. I'm telling you the truth. I didn't respond, so he continued, desperation creeping into his tone. Andrew knows I like you. Hell, I told him myself. That's why he brought Becca here. I kept my silence, signaling Adam that I already knew this. Adam nodded, his jaw clenched. Yes, my brother's a master manipulator, Eddie. He thrives on control. I hate him for it. He's always had this twisted habit of going after anyone I've been interested in. He thinks it's a game to steal what's mine. But this isn't a game for me. I shook my head, trying to process his words. I'm not yours, Adam. I'm not a property. This seems like one of your upper-class battles, and I will not be a part of it. No, he said firmly. This isn't about that. I don't care about the status or money, or any of that nonsense. I care about you, Eddie. I want something real, something genuine. And I know I have to earn your trust. I'm willing to fight for it, to prove that I'm serious about us. Please, give me a chance to show you. I stared at him. Could I trust Adam? Could I let him believe that he was different? In that second, Andrew stormed into the kitchen, his polished exterior barely concealing his irritation. Well, brother, another one of your little games, I see, he sneered, folding his arms as he leaned against the counter. Andrew, enough. Adam snapped, his tone sharp as a blade. His expression darkened, years of pent-up frustration spilling over. You've always done this to me. Always. It's pathetic. We're adults, for God's sake. Just let go of the games already. Andrew's smirk faltered for a moment, before he sighed theatrically. His gaze shifted between Adam and me, assessing, calculating. Then he chuckled softly, the sound dripping with condescension. I can see what Adam sees in you, Eddie. Truly. You're intriguing, but honestly, he waved his hand dismissively. The situation is starting to bore me. I stiffened at his words, but Adam was quick to fire back. That's because you can't manipulate it to your advantage for once, he growled. Get over yourself. Andrew raised an eyebrow, his composure returning. Oh, dear brother. Always so emotional. But Eddie, he turned his gaze to me, his voice dropping to a silky tone. Are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into with this one? He's, let's just say, impulsive. I want to quit, I interjected, softly but firmly, my voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Andrew blinked at me, his smirk returning. Fine, he said lightly, shrugging as if it was nothing more than an insignificant pawn to do whatever you want. His indifference stung, but it also clarified everything. The true manipulator in this house had been Andrew all along. You're a sad person, Mr. Andrew, I said, keeping my tone even, but I still wish you the best. Andrew waved me off, already losing interest, and walked over to the room without another word. As the door swung shut, Adam turned to me, his face filled with a mix of anger and sorrow. Eddie, wait! I shook my head, gathering my things. I'm done, Adam. Let me come with you, he said without hesitation, following me a step outside. The cool night air bit at my skin, and my breath formed little clouds in front of me. You don't have to, I said. Yes, I do, he insisted. I stopped walking to face him, my shoulders slumping slightly. Adam, I appreciate that, but right now, I just need a break. From this house, from everything. I need to figure out my own happiness. He nodded, though his expressions were tingled with disappointment. Slowly, he reached out and took my hand in his. That's what makes you so brave, Eddie, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You're willing to put yourself first, even when it's hard. But before you go, I have to ask one more thing. He tilted his head, curious despite myself. Ask what? Will you give me a chance? He asked, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. A small smirk tugged at the corner of my lip. For a handsome guy like you? I teased, raising an eyebrow. I might give an exception. A grin broke across Adam's face as he leaned in. With his hands, his lips met mine in a passionate kiss, filled with all of the yearnings of a promise that words could not convey. As I was pulled apart, breathless, I looked around. The first snowflakes of the season were beginning to fall, blanketed the world in a soft, silent beauty. New beginnings, Adam murmured, his arms slipping around my waist. I smiled, the warmth of his touch melting away the cold as we walked together down the dark street, leaving the chaos behind us and stepping into the unknown. After I quit working as a chef for Andrew, life took an unexpected yet rewarding turn. I landed a job as a sous chef in a newly opened restaurant, and my dedication and skill quickly earned me a promotion to head chef. With that authority came a lucrative paycheck, and soon enough, I saved up enough to fulfill a dream I had held close to my heart. Opening my own restaurant. Choosing its location was easy. I picked the town where Adam lived. He had earned his second chance, and he never disappointed me. Despite the distance, we nurtured our relationship, building it on trust, communication, and unwavering support. When the time came, I packed up my belongings and moved into his town, where I opened my restaurant. It was a leap of faith, but one that felt right. Adam and I moved in together, and as ever, my business grew, and so did our bond. We built our relationship brick by brick, cherishing every moment and overcoming every challenge together. The end. What's your unexpected Thanksgiving story? Thank you for watching. Consider subscribing to be a part of the Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.